When you think of the Candyman, you probably picture the chilling horror movie, a hook-handed ghost haunting the projects. But the truth is far more terrifying, because the real Candyman wasn't a phantom, he was a father. And his story is the reason parents double-check their children's Halloween candy. Our story begins on Halloween night 1974 in Deer Park, Texas. The air was damp from a recent rain, but spirits were high. Ronald Clark O'Brien, an optician and church deacon, was taking his two children, 8-year-old Timothy and 5-year-old Elizabeth, trick-or-treating with a neighbor and his kids. It was a picture of wholesome, suburban family life. As the night wound down, O'Brien lagged behind, approaching a darkened house. He returned moments later with 5 giant 22-inch pixie sticks, claiming the residents had just dumped them in his hands. He gave one to Timothy, one to Elizabeth, and one to each of his neighbor's children. The 5th, he said, was for another child from their church. Back home, before bed, Timothy begged for a taste of his candy. It was a choice that sealed his fate. He complained the powder tasted bitter. To help, his father gave him some Kool-Aid to wash it down. Within moments, Timothy began vomiting and convulsing violently. He was dead before he even reached the hospital, less than an hour after eating the candy. Panic gripped the community. Police confiscated all the candy from the neighborhood, fearing a madman was randomly poisoning children. The autopsy soon revealed the horrifying truth. Timothy's pixie sticks had been laced with enough potassium cyanide to kill 2 adults. Miraculously, none of the other 4 children had eaten the poison candy. The police quickly recovered the other tainted straws, one from the hands of a child who had fallen asleep holding it. Investigators' attention quickly turned to the only person connecting all 5 poisoned candies, Ronald O'Brien. His story about the dark house fell apart. The residents of that house were air traffic controllers who had been at work with over 200 witnesses to prove it. O'Brien couldn't identify the man who supposedly gave him the candy, and no one else in the neighborhood had received giant pixie sticks. The motive was as cold as the crime itself: money. O'Brien was over $100,000 in debt and on the verge of losing his job. In the months leading up to Halloween, he had taken out $60,000 in life insurance policies on his own children. He'd even called the insurance company the morning after Timothy's death to ask about collecting the payout. Investigators also discovered he had recently asked about buying cyanide at a chemical supply company, but left when he learned he couldn't buy a small amount. During his trial, the prosecution argued O'Brien had laced the top 2 inches of the pixie sticks with poison, carefully restapling the packages. He gave them to other children to create the illusion of a random madman, believing his own children would be among several victims. The jury was horrified. It took them just 46 minutes to find him guilty of capital murder. The press dubbed him the Candyman and the man who killed Halloween. Ronald O'Brien was sentenced to death. On March 31, 1984, he was executed by lethal injection. His last meal request was for a T-bone steak, fries, and Boston cream pie. He maintained his innocence to the end, but outside the prison a crowd gathered, some shouting "trick or treat" as the sentence was carried out. The case of the real Candyman forever changed Halloween. It cemented the urban legend of poisoned treats into the public consciousness, giving a real face to a nameless fear. Though stranger poisonings are incredibly rare, O'Brien's monstrous act is why communities created safe trick-or-treating events and why parents will always hesitate just for a second before letting their kids dig into the candy bag. Follow Mindbend Media for more creepy stories, if you dare.